Hello everyone, this is Sinan Ertemel. Welcome to my 8th lecture on coordination games. I will have two games today. Let me start with the Battle of the Sexes game. Here we have a couple, Anne and Bob. They are having breakfast and they decide what to do in the evening. And it is one of the two decisions, ballet or football. But the thing is, after they went to work, their battery died and they cannot communicate with each other. So they did not remember where to meet at 7 p.m. They can go either ballet performance or football game. And in our particular example, Anne likes ballet more and Bob likes football more. So let's create this payoff matrix. So if they end up at the ballet, Anne will get 2 and Bob will get 1. And if they end up at a football game, Anne will get 1 and Bob will get 2. And we assume that they are in honeymoon phase, so they want to spend their evening together. So if one of them is in ballet, the other in football, and vice versa, they will get 0. So our first observation is there is no dominated strategy. So if you want to find a reasonable outcome for this particular game, we will go ahead and find the Nash equilibrium, or Nash equilibria, which will be the case. So the best response, if Bob goes to ballet, the best response for Anne would be ballet. If it's football, then it's going to be football, and the same thing for Bob. So we have two Nash equilibria, ballet, ballet, and football, football. So which one will emerge, like we discussed in the game of chicken, that will depend on other factors. But before that, let me talk about business application of the Battle of the Sexes. Instead of Anne and Bob, let's think about two firms. They consider to merge and become a single entity. And they are working possibly with two different vendors. It could be operating system, database system, or like typical physical vendors. And the merger becomes more successful if they coordinate on the vendor and each firm prefers one particular vendor. And if they choose different vendors, then the merger will not be that much profitable. And this is exactly Battle of the Sexes, where we have two Nash equilibria. So in order to make the theory more predictive, very famous game theorist Thomas Schelling introduced the concept called focal points. And the idea of the focal point is a particular solution that people tend to choose in the absence of communication. So without communication, what is the most likely outcome that we can coordinate? That's the idea of the focal point. And it can depend on the customs, traditions, and many other factors. Like think about the driving game where drivers decide on either drive on the right or on the left. I mean, the coordination would dictate that either everybody drives on the left or everybody drives on the right. Which outcome will emerge? Focal point? Well, in England, the outcome where everybody drives from the left becomes the equilibrium, and in continental Europe, say Germany, everybody drives from the right. So, there are multiple equilibria, and each culture can end up with a different equilibrium. And if you read about this driving example, you can go all the way back to ancient societies where walking on the left for the right-handed people becomes like safer because you are having your weapon on your right hand side. So in evolutionary perspective, maybe going on the left makes more sense. And then some countries switch to right because of Napoleon. I mean, the way he came up with some carriages and himself being left-handed, that complicated things. So we have two coordination outcome in the driving game. So let's Consider Battle of the Sexes and make an experiment, not just Ann and Bob, two people in New York City, and location and time. If they don't remember where and when to meet, focal point also can help us to find a solution. I mean, depending on the tradition, maybe in New York City, some particular location could be more compelling, such as Grand Central Station, and maybe 12 p.m. is also like a focal point. If we make a poll, maybe this particular outcome has more occurrences than many other, but of course the locations might change over time, the most popular locations. And the focal point idea can be also based on ethical and justice principles. To illustrate that, there is a game called Nash Demand game. Suppose one person gives $100 as a gift to be distributed by two people, and the way distribution happens is the following. Each person is going to write a number, his demand, on a piece of paper and submit it. And if the total demand exceeds 100, nobody would get anything. They will get 0. And if the total demand is equal or less than 100, everybody will get what they want. And if we look at this equilibrium outcome of this demand game, there will be multiple. One might demand 90, the other 10. That's an equilibrium. Nobody has any incentive to deviate. 80, 20, 60, 40, 65, 35. So there are many equilibria. But if we play this with real $100 in an experiment, and if there is symmetry among these two people, the outcome that would emerge as a focal point would be probably each one will demand 50 and they will share it equally. Okay, so then let me move to the second game where we have multiple Nash equilibria and we can discuss which one would emerge according to focal point discussion. The second game is assurance game, maybe first illustrated by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, where he wants to convince that social cooperation is necessary. And the example is the following. There are two hunters and they can go either for stag deer hunt or hare rabbit hunt. And stag hunt is only successful if both hunters cooperate, if they go to stag jointly. Otherwise, it is unsuccessful. On the other hand, if they go for a hare, they will get it for sure. Yet, half of stag is better than one hare. Accordingly, let's create a payoff matrix as an example. So if both of them gets a stag, then the payoff will be 2. If they get a hare, the payoff is 1. If they get nothing, the payoff is 0. Again, no dominated strategy. We find the best responses and we end up with two Nash equilibria where both of them go for stag and both of them go for hare. Can we compare these two equilibria? Which one is more compelling? Stag or hare? Well, it could be both, depending on different principles. So if you look at the highest total payoff, if you look at the payoff dominance, then stag is better. They will get both 2, and this is the best for each hunter. And Bob. On the other hand, hare is the outcome which is risk dominant. So if I take the action hare, I don't have any risk. Regardless of what my partner does, I will always get 1 because hare hunt is always successful. So if I care about minimizing the risk, hare is a more compelling outcome. So the next question in terms of coming up with the art of strategy, payoff dominant outcome, stag, Is there any way that I can ensure this outcome occurs? Well, similar to the discussion we had for a game of chicken, maybe I can make a commitment, say as one of the hunters. If I buy a rifle, which is very expensive, and it can only be used effectively for like a stag hunt, and for other hunts, maybe it is like too heavy that I don't want to carry, the cost is too high, then that would signal my partner that I will definitely go for a stag hunt. So that sort of action could dictate that particular outcome. I would like to illustrate this concept via joint R&D project. Suppose there are two firms considering to invest on R&D project, but this R&D project is successful only if both of them invest, like the stag hunt. If one of them invests only, then the project will be unfortunately unsuccessful. Okay, and suppose the budget for R&D is $50 million. If it is successful, revenue is $80 million. The net profit will be 30. If you don't invest, you will get 0. So we create this following payoff matrix. And similarly, we have two Nash equilibria. Do R&D, both of them, or don't. So how do you reach to payoff dominant outcome? That is, both of them jointly invest on R&D. One possible answer could be the following. Maybe one company invests heavily on human resources, say top-notch scientists who have PhD from top institutions. Then this would signal the other firm that this is a viable commitment, because with this new hires, you cannot forward them to sales or marketing. These are only for R&D purposes. So my partner, my opponent, my partner is gonna definitely go for like R&D project. So then I should follow. So the main idea of devising the best strategies in multiple Nash equilibria setting is to give some credible commitment and signal that to your partner. That's the end of our lecture, and in the next lecture I will talk about mixed strategies. Thank you very much, and see you all in the next lecture.